now, an estimated 20 million Americans suffer from attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. It's an affliction characterized by inattentiveness, hyperactivity, and impulsiveness, and it makes it very difficult to do anything that requires intense concentration, including playing in Major League Baseball. Just ask Scott Eyre. This week, San Francisco Giants Scott Eyre reported to spring training along with the other pitchers and catchers on his team. But unlike his teammates who will worry only about running, throwing, and stretching, Scott will also struggle with the element most critical for a pitcher, maintaining his focus.
Had some starts early in the year, got knocked around. The ERA was over 10.
In May 2002, while pitching with the Toronto Blue Jays, Scott was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. For most of his life, Scott couldn't understand why it was so difficult to focus while trying to do homework or play ball, or why he seemed to get easily frustrated with his family and friends. Until his diagnosis at age 30, Scott was unable to tune out distractions. He had little patience, even for his two young sons, and his impulsiveness and inability to sit still in the bullpen was so distracting to his team that he felt he had to isolate himself. Since his diagnosis and treatment, Scott improved his game and had the best season of his career. His 3.32 ERA made him one of baseball's most reliable relief pitchers, and he's able to devote more focus and concentration on the ball field and at home with his wife and children. Joining us now from Phoenix, Scott Eyre, and in the studio, an ADHD expert from Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, Dr. Goodman. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Scott, when did you first notice that you were having problems focusing?
Pretty much my whole life. Depending on what I did, like you said in the briefing, homework, anything in life, baseball on the field, just standing on the mound, watching the hitter walk to the plate. Sometimes I'd see him start to walk up and just start thinking of something else, and never thought anything of it, and just figured that's who I was, or how I worked.
You say you never thought anything of it. You never asked anyone about your condition. Why do you think you weren't diagnosed sooner?
Like I said, I've actually talked to my high school coaches, who's a very good friend of mine, kind of like a big brother, and they say the same thing. They just figured that was Scott. That's how I was, and so I never thought anything of it, no.
Dr. Goodman, what is ADHD?
ADHD is a real and very treatable chronic medical condition we typically see in children with what Scott described. Inattention, distractibility, forgetfulness. These people are consistently inconsistent. And often the children don't get diagnosed, but more importantly, we now know that 50% of the children go on to have symptoms as adults. And before, we didn't realize that adults could have this condition. So it's not remarkable that Scott wasn't diagnosed until somebody saw that he was very much impaired. And his treatment has been remarkable.
How is it treated?
Well, it is treated with a combination of behavioral therapies and once-a-day medications like the medication Scott's on, Concerta, which helps control the symptoms over the course of the whole day. And the purpose of that, then, is to help the person function at their best.
Scott, tell me about the change in performance you had after you had the diagnosis and started taking this drug.
Well, changes on the field, like you guys stated, before taking my medication or being diagnosed with the condition, I think I had an ERA close to 6. Within weeks of starting to take it, I developed a dramatic change on the mound. Just being able to go up and remember how to pitch to hitters, a game plan, like how, if I want to throw the ball down and into this guy, up and into this guy, blah, 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 I could do that. And I could remember it from game to game, and it was kind of funny to me how it just kind of snowballed into it, and it just happened.
Wow, just looking at the stats there, that is an amazing change.
Yeah, it was something that I actually didn't realize was that dramatic until Pedro Gomez did a story on it last season, I should say, and he just looked at me and said, "There's a 2 point something ERA difference," and that was just mind-boggling to me.
Doctor, do you believe that perhaps there are other players out here with this disorder who have not been diagnosed?
Well, there are a lot of people with this condition. There are about 9 million adults in this country with this condition. And the fact that people don't realize you can have ADHD as an adult means that a lot of people are just kind of stumbling through their day and not working to their effective level. They're losing their jobs, they're getting divorced, they're filing bankruptcy. And it becomes a real problem. Half of these people have substance abuse problems, which complicates the picture. And often adults who see people with this condition simply say that this person is lazy, they're stupid, they don't care about it, they ascribe it to motivational factors, when in fact they have a real legitimate medical condition that needs to be treated.
And of course, as you say, it affects much more than your work. And Scott, we're talking about your ERA, but I understand that your family life is also a lot happier since you were treated and diagnosed. How has that changed?
Well, little things that people take for granted. Like now I can sit in the living room and play a game, Candyland, or my 5-year-old's really into Sorry right now. So I can actually sit and play Sorry, watch Cold Pizza in the morning, because we're actually up that early with school. But I can do things like that, and I don't get so frustrated anymore, you know, because I can actually, if I'm watching a movie or if I'm watching TV or doing something on my own, the kids are yelling and screaming like kids do. Every kid does that, you know. I can actually just block them out now and really pay attention to what I need to be doing. And I couldn't do it before. It was very frustrating. And I would either tell them, you know, go somewhere else, or I'd have to go somewhere by myself and watch TV or do whatever it was I was doing.
Well, especially like the watching Cold Pizza in the morning. That's a very big improvement. Very important.
I've watched it a few times. I actually watched last week when you had the Harlem Globetrotters on. I like that one.
Yeah, they were great.
Yeah.
Doctor, we're talking about how miraculous this drug has been for Scott, but is there a fine line between this medication and other medications that might be considered performance-enhancing drugs?
Good question, and we make a distinction. These are not medicines for performance enhancement. These are medications to treat a very specific diagnosable condition that people have had since childhood. The purpose of the medication then diminishes symptoms and improves their functioning, like Scott. Someone who goes from an ERA of 6 to an ERA of 3. Someone who is failing out of college who completes college. Somebody who's about to get divorced and we inform the spouse that this person has ADHD and they need to be treated and on medication. It's very important. People need to be aware that this condition exists in adulthood as well as children.
Well, this is an incredible story, and Scott, I want to thank you so much for coming in and talking to us about this so that other people who have this and perhaps don't know it can learn some more.
Oh, that's what we want to hope to accomplish, and like Dr. Goodman just said, you know, to add a little bit more to that, with without even playing baseball, I still would be taking the medication, just because of what it does off the field for me. So.
Great. Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning, and Dr. Goodman, thanks to you too.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And now let's go over to Leslie with today's top stories.